Deputy Fitzmaurice.
First of all, thanks for coming in. Mr. Garvey, I know you're down my own neck of the woods originally, in the insurance side of it. Look, guys, the reason that you're brought in here today is that there's a problem accruing. We've seen it in Galway and it seems to be spreading to other areas. There are voluntary groups, and you're all well aware of the amount of work the Tidy Towns Commission does in every town, Ballintubber, Indemnity, or all the different areas, be it in Clare or wherever, right around the country. And over the last few months, county councils have sent out a letter. There's a new system in some councils of construction and non-construction. Cutting grass will be non-construction. If you're building a wall, obviously it's construction. But the councils are looking for an indemnity for those people that's out doing the work. Now, you've got to bear in mind that in these little villages, and some of them are small one-horse towns, to be quite honest about it, that there's 2 or 3 people that go out and maybe keep their town looking better, and has made Ireland look an awful lot cleaner over the last number of years. They, in some occasions, and we'll say County Galway, GRD, you'll be familiar with it, would be doing work in the line of the bigger jobs, especially if it was building a stone wall or maybe doing a bend, that would be a help to an area and make it better. We are facing a situation at the moment that, and under TOOS, the likes of GRD does it in Galway, and there's a body over all that, so I'm not just picking on them on their own. We're facing a situation at the moment that, be it in towns like Indemnity or Dunmore or smaller towns, Ballintubber, that you have to give an indemnity to the council, the Tidy Towns group has. Now, they have insurance to do that, in fairness. But you also now, and you spoke about, Mr. Garvey, you spoke about the RSS and the TOOS. They are looking for an indemnity as well for the same thing that from the Tidy Towns Committee. So what the Tidy Towns Committee has to do is send their insurance into Galway County Council, or whatever county council for that matter. They have to do up a list of construction and non-construction, and then the likes of the GRDs of this world are going to look at that and say, well, we can do this and we can do that and we can do the other, but we have to get a method statement. And the big problem is, and this is where the big problem is, and this just doesn't include the likes of the places where you have GRD, that if there's a voluntary Tidy Towns group or 2 people in a one-horse village that go out with their lawnmower, they are expected to go and have signing and lighting 3-day and the 1-day, and put out their signs 600 metres, 400 metres, 200 metres, which they don't have the gear. And for, I think it's Mr. McHugh, that you're with the county managers, is it? Does the county councils or the city councils, it might be different in city where you have a lot of workers doing the work for you. In fairness, I know that there's parks and all that. But some of you may be familiar with the situation in the small towns. And we are kidding ourselves if we are going to put this onus on ordinary people, because what they will do, the voluntary sector in Ireland is unique and it's extraordinary. And what we are doing with this paperwork and indemnities and frightening the living daylights out of people is that it's going to be left there. And there is no council has the funding to do this work. But no one seems to want to address it. Everyone wants an indemnity. But at the end of the day, this work is being done for the benefit of rural Ireland. And there's another situation then that is very unclear. A town that has over 1,000 cars passing through it, Milltown in County Galway, for example. You need a different category for that, because obviously there's more cars going through it. If you're under 1,000, it's a small bit easier. If you go with your lawnmower now and you're a good citizen in a local village, and I saw it in Ballinamore Bridge. I was talking to Pádraig O'Brien the other day. They don't know what to do because it's like 2 grass verges. there's only one shop and one post office, or there's actually no shop. There was a post office, but it has the reminiscence of a village, and they try and keep it tidy. And they don't know, they have to go now from what they're hearing. And people won't do this. They're not, these are voluntary people that's working at other jobs. They are now being expected to do a 3-day course. They are being expected to buy signs and have no money for buying the signs, put them up, take them down every evening. And then the groups, the likes of the GRD, are saying, we will assess a job where they're involved through TUS and through RSS. We will explain how we can do it, but by the way, we don't have enough supervisors you have to have the 3-day course done to set up all the signs. By the way, we don't have enough supervisors, so we won't be able to get to every job. Which is the greatest load of cobs wallop. If we're thinking about, in fairness to Ireland and through the tidy town sector, in every county, and in fairness to Michael Ring with the funding he has given the tidy towns, this above all things isn't political. What has been done, it is lovely to drive through the towns of this country to see, even from the bust, to see how towns have got better looking. And we are now putting ourselves in a situation through bureaucracy, that's what I would call it, that these people are walking away. You know what's done, Mr. Garvey, below in Ballintubber. They are constantly doing stuff. And now there was a meeting in Clare Galway about the types of insurances and the indemnities and all this. And we have seen people walking away from doing this work because they don't have the 3-day signing and lighting, they don't have the 1-day courses done, they don't have time to do this, and it costs them money. And tidy towns groups, like, fine if it's a big town, they have a few quid, but where you have 2 people involved in a town getting €1,000 a year, they're paying to cut the bit of grass, they get a lawnmower and they cut the bit of grass and they go out at night. We had the spring clean up there a few weeks ago, where councils actually supplied them with gloves and different stuff, but at the same time they're supposed to be taking, the tidy towns are basically asked now to take all the risk. And we're going down a road that people will walk away. And if that happens, the funding isn't there. I don't care what government is in power. They don't have the funding, in fairness to any government, to put the manpower to go into a town and do all the grass and do everything. It might happen in a city, but the spirit of volunteerism is under threat at the moment. And I want G, as a group, to come up with a way of resolving this issue, because I think if the IPB or someone has to work and liaise with them, we are at a serious risk, in rural areas especially, of losing the goodwill, the thousands and millions of hours that's done by those great people for their pride of their parish. And now, through insurance bureaucracy, through having to sign your name. Imagine you going out every day, picking up litter, going out with a power hose and cleaning the streets, going out and cutting the grass, and you're being asked to sign your life away, that you'll indemnify everyone. It's not on. And if we lose them people, as I say, there's a fair difference between city and rural areas. There's a fair difference between a big town. And the other thing that needs to be addressed is this. I don't fully understand this over 1,000. But they say they in a pure quagmire altogether if there's over 1,000 cars going through your village. And if you're within so many metres of the road, if you're cutting grass on the edge of the road, even though you're not interfering with traffic, you still have to put up the sign and lighting. So I want to know how we are going to solve this, because at the moment there's a lot of people out there. I see in an overall, I see Glenamaddy and Craigs and Winnips, there are a lot of areas like that, and Milltown and places like that, and they don't know what they're doing. And then we have the bodies, the likes of the ones over the RSS and the TUS, saying, well, we'll look at it then, but we need that group to indemnify us. So I'm just wondering, Mr. Garvey, as well, why have they insurance at all, the likes of the GRDs of this world, when they're being indemnified from the local group and they're being indemnified from Galway County Council? Sure, Lord Jesus, nothing could go wrong with all the indemnification they have. Now, someone needs to step up to the mark on this and take the pressure off the ordinary people out there that go out in the evening after they're coming from work. They're not getting paid, they get absolutely nothing for it. But there's been a responsibility being put on them now that they're afraid of their life because of this insurance. Thank you. There is a problem at the moment this year that has emerged where Galway County Council is looking for indemnity. There is, for voluntary groups, and while you might be lucky, Deputy O'Keefe, that there's TOOS or RSS to do it everywhere. There is towns around the country, or small little villages, like the Ballinamore Bridge and places like that, where local people go out and cut the grass on a voluntary basis, and they pick up the litter, and now they're expected to do 3-day signing and lighting and the 1 day, and there has to be basically plans done of everything. And this is just going to drive them voluntary people away. Fine, if we're going to have someone paying for everything in the line of someone doing it, but to be honest about it, they're not there at the moment. Like, even to get, anyone will tell you, to get TOOS workers now is hard got. Isn't that fair to say in parts of the country?
Parts of the country, yes.
And where if there was an answer brought to that, as Deputy O'Keefe pointed out, that to be extended or whatever, where you were struggling. But we are, and look, it's probably more people are working, and that's a great thing. But this work, no one could put a figure what was done. And as was pointed out as well, Falls Ireland, what has been done for this country for tourists going along looking at towns, and the enthusiasm of people in those areas. And the other one I want to address is this problem over 1,000 cares, because I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there's some different stipulation when you go over 1,000 cares in your town or your village.
Thanks, Deputy.
First of all, I acknowledge the great work that Tidy Towns and other voluntary groups are doing in the local community, and I'm witness to it every day myself. I think it's important that I state at the outset, we don't insure Tidy Town associations. The second thing is we insure RSS, TOOS and the CES schemes, and we insure the employees who go out to work with those voluntary groups to do work. So if anything happens to any of those individuals, we cover the costs associated with any injury that they may happen to have. There's also the fact, I suppose, that there's a lot of health and safety regulation that has to be complied with. We know ourselves that if we are dealing with the personal injury claim and our insured hasn't complied with health and safety regulations, our defence is gone before we start. So the regulations are there for good reason. They're there to protect individuals, and no different from somebody driving a car and having to have insurance. Somebody can get knocked down working on the side of the road, or somebody can get injured using equipment that's in use, even if it's for a voluntary purpose. We're here to see what we can do to help, but it's important that I state we have changed nothing in our policies that we have, insurance policies we have with any of these employment groups. We haven't changed anything in relation to the insurance we provide to the local authorities. All we do in relation to any of these groups is make them aware of what legislation, regulation they need to be aware of and they need to observe for purposes of protecting themselves. So that's where we are on this at the moment.
Can you, what you're saying so is that you cover the RSS and the TOOS. Why is there a situation at the moment when the different bodies that's over the, so there's different names of groups in different counties, Eamon talked about Udaras or whatever, that they are now saying that they want an indemnity from the Tidy Towns and they want an indemnity from the County Council. What has changed that they this year want that? Is it not that they do their work that's required under the insurance that they have, under the health and safety regs that they have. And why are they now saying that jobs that were done down through the years, that they will need what they call a supervisor, that is the 3-day course done, that can put out signing and lighting. And this is for cutting grass now. I'm not talking about, I understand you have to do a method statement. I worked on the construction side of it. I understand you have to do a method statement. You have to go through the proper procedures if you're building a wall, if you need to put up traffic lights and all that. Yeah, you have to do all that and put up barriers. I understand all that. But I am talking about going in inside the 50-kilometre zone, and there's a curb there on the side of the road, and that's your lawn. And when you're above your lawnmower there, and you're a voluntary person within in that town, or you're a TUS person, that someone has to go out the road now 600 metres and put up all these signs. And what I'm saying is, why is the body that you're insuring looking for this new thing? Because in fairness, they probably haven't. There could be 50 towns in County Galway or 20 towns in County Roscommon or Mayo or Clare or wherever that they're doing it, and they won't have a supervisor to be running around with a pickup and throwing off signs and throwing them on, because when you put them out you have to take them in again. And this has now all of a sudden started happening, and on top of that, the councils, which ye do insure, are looking that the tidy towns will do everything in compliance with health and safety reg, which means that even if they haven't a TUS or an RSS worker, and if they're doing it voluntary, just think of that word, voluntary, that they have to get their own van. At least if there was a supervisor, it might be a van that they were getting a few quid for. But these get it with their own van, buy their own signs, do their 3-day course, do their 1-day course, to cut the same grass that they were cutting on the side of the curb for the last 15 or 20 years, and they wasn't a word about it. And why now are we left in that situation? And if we go down the road of doing everything, if there isn't some indemnity to them people given by, be it councils and working with their insurance, and what the chairman said there and what Deputy O'Queill said, I think, and I wouldn't want it a talking shop. It's something that needs to be addressed quick, but that the different stakeholders, be it the representative body of all the tidy towns, the representative body of the councils and the road side of it especially, the insurance bodies and the representatives of, we'll call it, the different groups that take care of the RSS and the thing. And if heads don't be banged together, we are going to see in Ireland shortly where people, like, we see the problems with insurance down through the years and people are afraid of their life. Well, I'm hardly going to go out as a voluntary person, am I? I insure my care and I do this, that and that. I'm hardly going to go out as a voluntary person, sign a form, and I do it voluntary, to send into the council, to send into the body that's over RSS and TUS. I, as an individual, sign this and I do it voluntary for the betterment of my village or my town or my pride of place. And if we think that people are going to stay doing that, we have an explosion coming, guys, that the councils will be responsible for cutting the grass or doing work like that. And that won't happen because we can't even fill the potholes in places, not to mind to go cutting grass and go cleaning streets. And the amount of work that they put in, those people, in every little village, mightn't seem much to someone in some parts of the country, but the pride that they have in it, in their place. And all we're doing is saying, well, look, guys, you need to go by the usual health and safety regulations and do this, that and that. When the snow was out a few years ago, we went along the road with our fertiliser spreader and we shook it. And do you know what we found out later? Oh, by the way, it was against the law. You weren't covered in your insurance now. And then when it came, I think down south, was it one of the storms, finally the penny dropped and the state did say, if farmers go out and do that, they're covered because they were doing good and it was done in trying to do it in the public interest or the benefit of our country. And if we cannot do something like that for the tidy towns groups to go forward with it, I'm not saying you go out in the middle of the road and stand in the middle of the road waiting for a car to hit you. But Lord God, if you're within with the lawnmower and the side of a verge and someone looking for signs up the road 600 metres, it's gone wrong. And we need to have some indemnity for those people. And I am asking, I agree with the chairman, and I want to thank him and his staff for this meeting. We need to get your heads together and not, I don't want to talk and shop going on for months, because there's a penny dropped at the moment in a lot of villages or a lot of towns, and these people are sick to the teeth of getting rules and regs, and next thing they'll walk away from it.
Just one thing I forgot to say as well is that there's a situation with the partnership groups. What they are saying at the moment, if you have a TUS worker and they are cutting grass, well, Joe down the road there, that's the voluntary person, they will be asking the voluntary group in that area to get the signs, put out the signs. Johnny will come along on his lawnmower and cut it from TUS, and Joe has to go back in voluntary fella or woman and take all the signs down. Now that's not feasible in any world, and councils needs to get involved in this for the simple reason that work is being done in that town, and it's actually, to put it bluntly, it's council work, to put it bluntly. And someone might address from the councils this 1,000 car rule. What's the difference? What's the difference under it and over it? And explain it.
I'm probably not best placed to comment on rural towns and villages, because we don't really have that in my authority. There's a few questions raised in relation to insurance questions generally. And most local authorities operate a community grant scheme, and community organisations who incur insurance costs or insurance overheads, there's normally a scheme of grants that would normally assist them, including in my own authority in Dunleary town. There's other issues that were raised in relation to we have a direct labour workforce. We have contracting of various services. So all of our grass cutting and all of our roadside works are done either by a combination of direct labour or contractors on our behalf. So our tidy townspeople wouldn't normally, they do community cleanups and litter cleanups, and we assist them towards that. We don't we don't require insurance indemnity or whatever. We do issue guidelines in relation to the use of equipment and how people should actually operate on roadsides, but we don't, as I say, ordinarily allow or permit people to work on our live carriageways.
I understand what you're saying, and sorry for interrupting you, but like we're talking about chalk and cheese here. The two countries, we have a situation.
Are you representing all the managers, or is it just yourself? Or
I was asked to come in here to support IPB in relation to any questions about particular local authority services. I wasn't aware of this particular instance, so obviously I'm not familiar with the situation in Galway.
Maybe you could come back to us on this, but we're in a situation down the country, and I understand the parks and all the different things. We've small towns that there might be 100 people in, or 50 people in, or 300 people in, and they go out voluntary themselves because there's no council people or no parks people or anything. They do it themselves voluntary. Do you understand me? And they have their own little insurance. They call themselves the Tidy Towns Group, and in fairness to Minister Ring, he gives them money each year to pay for cutting the grass and insurance and that. But they're left in a situation of they're voluntary. They're not like you're set up in Dublin, where you have your own staff or you sub it out to a subcontractor, and I understand that. But like we're talking about apples and oranges here, to be honest about it.
The one thing I would add is, because...
Do you know anything about the 1,000 car rule?
No, but I am aware of the signing, lighting and guarding requirements, which obviously apply to both our own staff and contractor staff then too. And they are very stringent requirements in relation to that. And in the event of something going wrong, it's not only insurance consequences. There's also criminal consequences in relation to the person who put out those situations in place. So it's not simply an insurance cover element, because in the event of something going wrong, the HSA would ordinarily get involved, and there are potential criminal prosecutions and investigations.
Where is the, say, the time of Storm Im or one of them storms? as I pointed out the time of the snow, when we hit it off ourselves and just done it and got it done with, and that was it. But when Storm Emma came along, there was an announcement from the state. Is it the councils that cover that? Is it the IPB that cover that? Where people doing goodwill work or good deed for their, no more than if someone was choking and you went to save them and that they died, you're not going to be prosecuted. But that the same that if you were doing goodwill work in a small little village or town, clipping the grass or doing something like that, where does it come in, or how could we get to a state that those people would be covered for doing the goodwill gesture?
There was a particular, I suppose, occasion post Storm Emma, but my understanding is that once the local farmers or community operated within the guidelines which were issued at national and at local level, that there was a cover or an insurance cover provided by the local authorities. I don't know if that's possible in relation to tidy towns. As I say, I'm speaking from a different perspective entirely, because we do have very, very active tidy towns associations and groupings within my own local authority, but they don't do the types of works that you were referring to earlier on. So I really can't comment on that.
Could I just ask a question? Would each group be interested in coming on a working group to address the issues that have been outlined? Or do you feel that it is an issue at all?
Well, clearly it is an issue, because we wouldn't have been called in here today if it wasn't. From our point of view, as I said before, we haven't changed anything. The big challenge here is there's a far greater onus, perhaps, in certain quarters in relation to compliance with regulation, health and safety. And that is coming about as a result of the fact that, you know, the awards in the courts in relation to injuries are a challenge, which we have a cost of insurance review group looking at the moment. That situation hasn't gone away, and as long as we see awards of the scale being made, and as long as we see criminal prosecutions for failure to observe health and safety regulation, I think we have a challenge. As insurers to the local authorities, we certainly are happy to sit down with our local authority members to discuss the fact that we were here today. It seems to me that the practice isn't consistent across the country, that clearly, Deputy Fitzmaurice, in the area that you represent, there seems to be a challenge. I wasn't aware of these issues until we came in here today, so it's very hard for me to say what needs to be done in that regard. But from IPB's position, we're happy to sit down with our members who are the local authorities. We insure the groups that provide a lot of this employment, and see what we can do to help that situation.
Would you be willing, and we can put it to a proposal here, would you be willing, the IPB, a representative from the county managers, and I think that it needs to be, with no disrespect to anybody from Dublin, I want to be clear about that, but it needs to be somebody that's au fait with the set-up that's down the country and I'm not taking from them in any way, because it's a different system that's used in Dublin, and the representatives of the partnerships, plus the representatives of the tidy towns groups, or the PPRE numbers, whatever you call it, something names that's on that. And if one or two of us needs to sit in on it, I'm asking, is each person, would you be prepared to work with that chairman, and would the different people here, as well as writing to the partnership bodies, to sit down and thrash this out? Because in fairness to Deputy O'Keefe, what he said there, the tooth worker, if they were done on the sign and light, and the voluntary person to do it, you know what I mean? But we're left in a quagmire at the moment, and all that's going over and back now to councils is paperwork over to councils, giving your list of non-construction and construction. But then that will be looked at by the partnership, and if the non-construction, which is grass cutting, is on the side of the road, then they'll say, well, we need sign and lighting, and you need to put up signs. So, like, we're not making headway on this. We need to have it clear, precise, and I would recommend as well, Mr. Chairman, that a rep from the Department of Rural Affairs would be on it, that department in case there's a need for a few pound and social protection, because it's Regina Doherty's, it's her area that's doing the TUS, and I presume the RSS as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Deputy. Yeah, there is a willingness there to cooperate with a working group. Mr. Kerwin, we haven't heard from you on that, but I'm just maybe assuming that, but you'd get involved the state's claims.
I suppose, Chair, we are in reality sort of tangentially involved in many of these matters. So we don't, as I said, have a direct state indemnity. Does not cover the tidy towns. State indemnity does not cover many of these schemes. However, I will say, and it's perhaps to Deputy Fitzmaurice's point, that there is a level of misunderstanding and bureaucracy sometimes that maybe a working group could actually cut through. Yeah. We ourselves sometimes we are involved, perhaps as I said, a little bit tangentially with, say, like the CE programs or some of the other schemes whereby some of the delegated state authorities that we indemnify are actually taking on a volunteer worker. And in that case, state indemnity probably works to advantage there, where there is not a renewal of policy. Once we can get those people to fully understand that, like, once an employee is working for the HSE or a voluntary body, let's say on a temporary basis, state indemnity just covers the activities that they're doing for that period of time that they're working there, and it sort of simplifies that process. So perhaps a working group like that, I'm not sure how much we have to contribute to it, but we're absolutely willing to be involved in any initiative of that sort.
Very good, very good. No, and I think Deputy Fitzmaurice, you'd have to have a representative from the Department of Rural Community Development, and from the Department of Employment and Social Protection as well. But thanks for your contribution today on that, and we will be in touch. We will set up a working group. There is an urgency in this because you're coming into, a very busy time for tidy towns groups, and as this is actually happening in Galway as we speak. The last thing you want to do is see people, being forced to leave their voluntary activity in their community because of red tape. So we'll set up that working group, and I'd like to thank each and every one of yourselves for coming here today and for giving your evidence to the committee. We will be in touch in due course.